मंत्रालय की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस में
Affairs Minister will visit the United States of America from 11th to 12th April 2022. Raksha Mantri Shri Rajnath Singh and EAM will lead the Indian delegation at the 4th India-US 2+2 Ministerial Dialogue, which will take place on 11th of April in Washington, D.C. The US delegation led by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. The dialogue would enable both sides to undertake a comprehensive review of cross-cutting issues in the India-US bilateral agenda related to foreign policy, defense and security, with the objective of providing strategic guidance and vision for further consolidating the relationship. This 2+2 dialogue mechanism, as you know, we have with very few countries, will also provide an opportunity to exchange views about important regional and global developments and how we can work together to address issues of common interest and concern. As part of an ongoing and bilateral dialogue and regular dialogue, the EM will also separately meet his US counterpart, Secretary Blinken. EM is also scheduled to meet senior members of the US administration to further advance the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. That's from my side for the announcements. Happy to take a few questions on issues that may be bothering you. Okay, 1, 2, okay, maybe I'll start with you.
Okay. Hi, what is India's, this is Yeshi Seli from the New Indian Express, what is India's stand likely to be in the meeting against Russia in the UN?
Sorry, repeat that. India's stand, can't hear you. Close the mic, please.
What is India's position going to be during the voting of the session against Russia tonight?
Okay. Anybody related to that? I know a lot of hands here. One second. Okay. Yeah.
They say that if we abstain, the Russians are saying if we abstain, that would be taken an affront to them.
And your question is?
The question is, what exactly would be our position
same
where
thing.
we are?
Fair
we
enough.
threatened by our
okay.
good old friends?
Yeah.
सर नीरज हूँ न्यूज 18 इंडिया से। पाकिस्तान में जो पॉलिटिकल क्राइसिस है उस पर भारत का पक्ष क्या है और श्रीलंका में जो इस वक्त इकोनॉमिक
एक करके आते हैं एक पाकिस्तान हमारा क्या आपने क्या हमारा रुख क्या है हमारा रुख क्या है जी सिद्धांत I'll come back to that. Mr. Hans.
So there is a ceasefire in Yemen for almost 2 months. Any reaction from the Indian government, from Ministry of External Affairs on that?
I'll take one more maybe. You raised your hand. I'll come back to you. Yeah, Meghna. Go ahead.
Meghna Dev from DD News. Sir, we have been sending assistance to Sri Lanka, and anything else ahead is also planned assistance that is going to be, or any demand that has come from Sri Lanka. How are we looking at it?
Okay, if you have a related question, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Amity from the Business Line. Are we facing a shipping problem also in sending a consignment, especially our agri exports?
To Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka.
Okay, let me try to answer some of these questions. Okay, the easy ones first. Yeshi, on India standard UNHRC, and Viniji, are we threatened? Why should we be threatened? Look, I've always taken the line, we can't speculate. I don't have a crystal ball, so wait a little while. All I can tell you is I think 10 o'clock in New York time, and I think that should be about 7:30. There's a session that has been called in the UN, special session of the UNG. And you will see what we have to say. I think we'll have to wait for that. About the Yemen, I think you asked, that was slightly different. So I have a position here. Let me tell you. We welcome the announcement of the 2-month ceasefire in the Yemen conflict from 2nd of April. They initiated the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy, Hans Grundberg. We hope that this truce will lead to a more comprehensive and durable ceasefire and build positive momentum towards an inclusive political process to end the 8-year-long conflict in Yemen. India has historical and friendly ties with Yemen and hopes for peace, security and prosperity for the people of Yemen as well as for the region. आपने पूछा नीरज जी अबाउट पाकिस्तान के हमारा क्या रुख है जो अभी के डेवलपमेंट्स की बात कर रहे हैं. देखिए ये अंदरूनी मामला है उनका और इस पे एक्चुअली मेरी कोई टिप्पणी भी है नहीं. हम उस पर नजर तो बना रखे पर अंदरूनी मामले पे हम कमेंट नहीं करते हैं. About Sri Lanka, I think, Meena, you asked, and Amit, you also asked on that. Look, I don't know exactly what you had in mind. We have shared some information. There are a lot of developments that we are watching closely. We are a neighbor and a close friend. There have been evolving economic situation there as well as other developments. As you are aware, in order to help mitigate the economic situation there, we have extended assistance. If you put it together, about $2.5 billion worth during the past 2-3 months, I would say. Includes credit facilities for fuel and food, which are most required. Since mid-March, over 270,000 metric tons of diesel and petrol have been delivered to Sri Lanka. 270,000 metric tons. You would have seen our embassy, High Commission yesterday put that figure out. In addition, 40,000 tons of rice have been supplied under the recently extended $1 billion credit facility. I just want to emphasize the relationship between India and Sri Lanka is rooted in shared civilizational values and aspirations of our two people. Our cooperation, based on commonality and interests, has been strengthened in recent months. We see the recent developments in this perspective, and as you asked, what else can we do? We stand ready to continue working with Sri Lanka for rapid post-COVID economic recovery. This is in line with our neighborhood first policy, and we've already conveyed to them at various occasions our readiness to extend whatever support we can, and as has been demonstrated by our actions till now. I don't have a specific, comment on that, because I'm not aware. We haven't come across any difficulties of sending material there, because as you've seen, a lot of the material has been delivered. But if there is a specific, I'm happy to look into it. As of right now, we are not aware of any difficulties that are being faced on that. Okay, sorry.
Last how many days, sir? Over 2.5
What, 2.5 billion or 270,000?
270,000.
This is from mid-March.
From mid-March.
Okay, sorry, you had raised your hand early first round. I'll come back to you, Sudhi. One second. Yeah.
पावर मिनिस्टर ने कहा है कि दो कोशिशें
Microphone for record. Name and
कादम्बिनी शर्मा, एनडीटीवी इंडिया। पावर मिनिस्टर ने कहा है कि दो कोशिशें हुई हैक करने की इलेक्ट्रिसिटी ग्रिड लद्दाख के पास, तो क्या इस पर बीजिंग से कोई बात हुई है, होगी, कुछ भी इस पर लाइन ओपन की गई है?
जी। Who had before you? Sudhi?
Sir, Shrilankan from the Bloomberg. We've recently seen some very strong public statements coming from US officials, and the last being from Brian Deasy, the National Economic, who's in the White House's National Economic Council.
It was your, it was a Bloomberg report. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Following it up.
Okay.
And who says that, they're disappointed with India's stand on Russia. Plus, we've seen statements from Dalip Singh in India. Would you give us your reaction?
Is the particular question, just generally reaction?
Reaction, especially since we have agreed to go for the 2+2.
Oh, yes, of course. Of course. Who had raised hand? I thought you had raised hand. First, 1 second, microphone. Suhasini.
My question's connected as well, without going through the laundry list all the way from US President Biden to National Security Council officials, to the Commerce Secretary, to the US Deputy National Security Advisor, and now the State Department. We've heard these comments. In specific, I'd like to ask you about the comments by Mr. Dalip Singh, who said that there are consequences to any country that seeks to set up payment mechanisms that could subvert sanctions that the US has placed on Russia. And a follow-up that we heard from, I think it was the State Department, saying that these consequences have been clearly conveyed to the Indian government. So could you give us a sense of what kind of consequences India expects, given that External Affairs Minister said in Parliament that under the Finance Ministry we are looking at setting up these payment mechanisms?
Sure. Yeah, please. And I'll come to that. I missed you. Sorry. I just started.
Hi, hello. My name is Takashi Ishihara from Japanese newspaper. I'd like to ask about the Ukraine issues. Minister Jaishankar said India agreed having an independent investigation about the mass killing in Bucha, near the capital.
Bucha, right?
Bucha. Yeah. So how do you ensure the independent investigations while Russia says it's conducted by the Ukraine side, and Ukraine side, of course, they say it's conducted by Russia. So how do you ensure? Do you have any specific idea to ensure?
Okay. Sorry, you had raised your hand.
विजयलक्ष्मी हूँ इंडिया टीवी से। जो कादम्बनी जी ने पूछा उसी का एक सप्लीमेंट्री सवाल है। स्टेट स्पॉन्सर्ड हैकर्स के द्वारा जो पावर ग्रिड को हैक करने की कोशिश की गई, इस तरह की मीडिया रिपोर्ट्स हैं। पिछले कुछ महीनों में ये कोशिशें हुई, क्या MEA भारत सरकार ने इसको उठाया है चाइना के साथ, या आगे उठाने का कोई इसको लेकर है?
Okay, let me start with the US ones because I heard a couple of rounds. Look, I think I have the benefit of having a very detailed statement that was made by External Affairs Minister yesterday in Lok Sabha. We've also had our statement. So let me rely a little bit on that in trying to answer the various questions that have been asked on this. I think, so we mentioned a couple of people, and you, Swasini, spoke about Dalip Singh, and then I think that was kind of a sense of what we wanted to go. The issue of whether it's consequences or disappointment or perspectives of other countries, I think the issue was addressed at length by External Affairs Minister yesterday during his statement in Lok Sabha. Let me emphasize a couple of these points. As you are aware, we have established economic relations with Russia. Our focus is on stabilizing this established economic relations in the current circumstances. And we've been very open about it, and we've been saying the requirement and the need to stabilize it given the difficulties. So I think that's pretty clear in regarding our position. As regards, who is trading with Russia and that kind of a line of consequences and what consequences are on that, I think EM also addressed this in his comments. Let me just emphasize that energy flows to Europe are continuing. Fertilizer purchases have been insulated. There are such other examples also. So as I think I would just rely on what EM said, political coloring should not be attributed to our actions. I think that sums up well on that. You mentioned Dalip Singh in particular. Look, let me also emphasize another element, his visit, who's, I understand, Deputy National Security Advisor for International Economics. He's also the US G20 Sherpa. We had broad-ranging discussions during his visit on contemporary economic issues, such as working, with India in the G20 and our forthcoming G20 presidency, the infrastructure development, climate finance, critical technologies, and ensuring food security. He also briefed us on the context, objectives, and efficacy of US sanctions on Russia. So I think that gives a good sense of how we see these, these comments, a variety of comments, as you correctly said. I don't think that it has anything particular the 2+2 context. I think, as I emphasized, we have a very strong, robust, diversified relationship with the US, and this 2+2 is in that context is something that we're looking forward to. कादम्बनी जी आपने और I think विजयलक्ष्मी जी आपने भी पूछा इसके बारे में, ये हैकिंग के जो स्टोरीज चले हैं. देखिए, हमने भी ये स्टोरीज देखी हैं रिपोर्ट्स में, और मैं ये कहना चाहता था कि हमारी जो क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एक डिफाइन किया जाता है उसको जिनमें ताकि उसमें कोई दिक्कतें ना आए, वो रेजिलिएंट रहे, ऐसे केसेस में इसके लिए एक मैकेनिज्म है, एक सिस्टम है. तो मैं उसके बारे में सिर्फ इतना ही कह सकता हूं कि हमारे पास हमारे क्रिटिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर बचाने के लिए है, उनको सेफगार्ड करने के लिए एक सिस्टम्स, हमारे मैकेनिज्म्स हैं. पर इस स्पेसिफिक इशू पे आपको पावर मिनिस्ट्री से ही पूछना पड़ेगा, और पावर मिनिस्टर ने आई थिंक कुछ टिप्पणी दी है थोड़ी देर पहले मीडिया को. और आपने पूछा चीन से ये वार्तालाप और इसमें ये उठाया गया, नहीं, मुझे ऐसा कोई खबर नहीं है कि हमने उठाया था. अभी स्टोरी तो अभी की बात है, तो मुझे ऐसा कोई नहीं खबर है कि हमने इस बात पे कोई छेड़ा होगा चीन के साथ. आई थिंक दैट covers the questions. No, Mr. Takashi asked about Ukraine. Look, I think you saw a statement yesterday of External Affairs Minister on Ukraine and on the killings in Bucha in particular. I'm happy you took our position clearly. We have been saying this in the UN Security Council, and he saw it yesterday with External Affairs Minister. Let me reiterate that. Reports of civilian killings in Bucha are deeply disturbing, and we unequivocally condemn these killings. We support calls for an independent investigation. And your query was, how should we ensure that? Look, the term itself is independent investigation. It has to be in a way that is independent. We are not in a position to, insist on how, or nor are we in a position to conduct it. But an independent investigation would help determine further facts about it. And I think there is clearly an outrage and unhappiness about these developments, which have been reflected in our statement. I think that's how I would respond to you.
So this is UN monitored, or
As I said, it's got to be independent. We have not made any particular clarification whether this has to be UN monitored or not. I think there should be an investigation, and obviously, if it's independent, it's better. Okay, let me take the next round of questions. Okay, no, sorry, आपका पहले हाथ था. 1 minute, please. Go ahead.
सर मधुरेंद्र, मैं न्यूज नेशन से, और मेरा सवाल जो मौजूदा यूक्रेन वॉर है उसके इम्पैक्ट को लेकर है कि लगातार दबाव भारत पर है यूएस की तरफ से कि हम ट्रेड रिलेशंस को कर्टेल करें रसिया के साथ, तो क्या उसका कोई इम्पैक्ट दिखाई दे रहा है? क्या हमने जो मौजूदा ट्रेड रिलेशन रसिया के साथ है उसमें सैंक्शन के दबाव में कोई भी कटौती की है? और इसी से जुड़ा मेरा दूसरा सवाल है कि जो ऑयल इंपोर्ट है उसको हम किस तरह से आगे बढ़ाएंगे, क्या उसका कोई रोड मैप तैयार किया गया है?
एक क्वेश्चन, बट नहीं, आपने उसी
रिलेटेड
ठीक है.
सर शालंद्र, न्यूज 18 से. Will the president's suspension of Covaxin supplies through UN agencies impact international travel for those who took Covaxin?
Covaxin, right? Okay, one question here.
Sir, rupee ruble mechanism पे कोई अपडेट है?
Sorry, आपने नाम और डेजिग्नेशन बता दिया रिकॉर्ड के लिए.
मेरा नाम संजीव त्रिवेदी है, मैं न्यूज़ 24 से.
Somebody, yeah, Kalol, please.
Kalol from the Hindu. The US Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has asked the Biden administration to criticize the Modi government over its records of, treatment of minorities in India. What is your response to it?
Okay. Somebody else wanted a question. Okay, we'll take the last one. No, before that, can I just come back to you? Maybe what I'll do is I'll come back to both of you. Let me just try to some of these ones. मधुरेंद्र जी, आपने पूछा हम भारत पे दबाव है ट्रेड के बारे में. मुझे लगता नहीं ऐसा कोई दबाव. देखिए, कुछ जगह सैंक्शंस की बात चल रही है, जैसे यूएस या कुछ डाला है, पर ये पूरे ट्रेड पे नहीं है. जैसे मैंने अभी बताया अंग्रेजी में, काफी सारी ट्रेड चल रही है, ऑयल पे भी ट्रेड चल रही है, तो ऐसी पता नहीं किस दबाव की बात कर रहे हैं. हाँ, जाहिर है कि हर पक्ष की तरफ से उनकी अपनी एक नजरिया रहती है कि हम ये करें या ना करें, पर जैसे मैंने कहा हमारा भी फोकस यही है कि हमारा जो रशिया के साथ एस्टैब्लिश रिलेशंस है इकोनॉमिक एरिया में, उसको इस सिचुएशन में, ऐसे हालात में जहां पे सैंक्शंस वगैरह हो रहे हैं, उसमें मेंटेन कैसे करें, उसको स्टेबलाइज कैसे कर सकें, ये हमारी फोकस है. उसी पे हमारी चर्चा चल रही है इंटरनली और उनके साथ भी. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि अभी इमीडिएटली चेंज हुआ है या कुछ दिक्कतें हो सकता है. मैं जैसे कह रहा हूं, पहले भी कह चुका हूं कि सैंक्शंस का क्या इंपैक्ट होगा और किस तरह से हमारे ऊपर ये बदलना पड़ेगा, कुछ वो अभी तक क्लियर नहीं है. पर इस समय ऐसा कोई स्पेशल चेंज हुआ है मुझे ज्ञात नहीं है. आई थिंक यू आस्क्ड अबाउट, हाँ, ऑयल इंपोर्ट में भी मैं वही कहूंगा कि देखिए, डिटेल्स आपको जानना है तो पेट्रोलियम मिनिस्ट्री पे बता पाएंगे, पर ये इशू भी वैसे ही चल रहा है कि हमने, जैसे मैंने कहा, काफी देशों में ऑयल इंपोर्ट हो रहा है. हमारे यहां पे भी, जैसे कल विदेश मंत्री ने कहा पार्लियामेंट में कि हमें भी दिक्कतें आती हैं, हम इंपोर्टिंग कंट्री हैं और हर कंट्री अपने जरूरत को देखता है, पर हमारा इंपोर्ट काफी कम है और बहुत कम आता है रशिया से, हम दूसरे देशों से ज्यादा आता है, तो उसमें भी ऐसे कोई इमीडिएट चेंज का मुझे खबर नहीं है. Covaxin, I think, Shailendra, you asked, right? Look, this is something, to be honest, you would probably have to ask the company and WHO, but my understanding is as follows. I think there has been a statement issued by Bharat Biotech, which, as well as from WHO, both of which are very clear in emphasizing that the vaccine is safe, it's effective, its efficacy is not in question. There is something about process issues that are being worked out between the company and WHO, and you'll have to ask them about the details. I certainly do not think there should be any impact at all of people who have taken Covaxin, which is a safe vaccine, in terms of their travel. It continues to be recognized under the emergency use listing of WHO, and various countries have already accepted it. And also we have had mutual recognition of vaccination certificate arrangements with various countries. The list is available on our website if you would like. So I don't think that's a cause for worry at all. Rupee ruble, I think Sanjeev ji, you were asking. I wasn't sure what you had in mind on that. As EM said yesterday, there is an interministerial group headed by the Finance Ministry that is looking at the impact of, how we can, as I said, stabilize our economic relations with that. Details of anything, you'll obviously have to ask Finance Ministry for details of that. But as I said, there are discussions underway to see what kind of payment mechanisms, etc., can work in the current circumstances. So I will leave it at that in terms of this, and I think Finance Ministry may be in a better place to give you further details. But it is something that is being looked at, not specifically ruble, but payment mechanisms. On Kalol, you mentioned about a comment by a US Congresswoman. I'm not sure I need to react to it. I think this is an issue on which our position is pretty well known. I don't think India is in a situation where it needs to be defensive about it. I think our democracy speaks for itself, and if there are issues, there are internal issues. I certainly am not going to complicate life just by commenting on something that I have seen on media on this. By that logic, anybody who says something will have to respond. I think we'll wait for it for now. There were a couple of people who had the questions raised. You haven't asked yet, and then I'll come to Siddhant.
Rita Chenni from ANSA. My question is, given your repeated stand for peace between Ukraine and Russia, is there any possibility that India makes a different step in order to starting a role of mediator?
Different what? I'm sorry, I missed that word. It makes a different?
Makes a step.
A step. Okay. A further step. Okay. Siddhant, the second questions. Yeah.
Sir, what is New Delhi's stance on the West saying that Russia should be suspended from the G20? This, given the fact that
G20
from the G20 grouping, because we're going to host the G20 next year. I know this year Indonesia is.
You answered my question, but I will say the same thing to you.
But I mean, what's the stance?
I will. Fair enough. I will come back to you. You want to take a last question, please?
There are reports that Air India flight to Moscow have been suspended today over insurance issues and the insurance provided by international agencies. So is there any plan by Government of India to provide any sovereign guarantee?
Okay, let me just take this set of questions. Look, to answer your question, Rita, I would again rely on what EM said. I think he said it very clearly in Parliament. We, in terms of diplomacy, are continuing to press forcefully for an immediate cessation of hostilities. We have said that, an end to violence. We encourage talks between Ukraine and Russia, including at the level of the presidents directly. We have said that. In fact, our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, spoke to both the leaders and said this. We made this public. This was also the message, precisely the message that was conveyed to Foreign Minister of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, when he was here, just a few days ago. So if India can be of any assistance in this matter, we'll be glad to contribute. But at this point, I think we'll leave it at that, because it depends finally on the two of them, both sides, talking to each other and, as we have suggested, finding a way of diplomacy and dialogue forward. On the Air India flights, if I could take that first, look, as I've been saying repeatedly, people have been asking us about what is the impact of sanctions, what are you doing? This is something that is exactly what we are trying to see, how it impacts, what are the implications on, as Foreign Secretary, remember sitting here, mentioned there might be some impacts. We agree that there could be impact of that. I don't have the full details of this, but this is exactly why there are groups looking at what could be the impact of this and what are the ways ahead. But look, what are the remedial measures, or if any, that you will have to ask civil aviation on that, particularly in terms of insurance. I think it will be more in the reinsurance area, not so much insurance. But again, this is a technical area that I will stay out of. On Siddhant, I don't have a response. As I said, we are looking forward to taking the chairmanship of the G20. This question has not been posed to us, as we are not chair. I don't know if what is the thinking. G20 is a large grouping. I'm not yet sure what is the thinking of other countries. I don't think we have a stance on it. I certainly don't think we have a stance to say Russia should not be in it. But I don't think we have said anything either way. And let's see how it progresses. There is a G20. I think that it is finally the chair's prerogative, but the G20 in a group is something that we value at the international level, the opportunity that it provides of leading economies to discuss issues, topical issues, important issues. So we will probably look at it from that perspective, but I'm speculating here, so let us wait for how it moves. Sorry, I think we'll close it here unless there's something very, very interesting. I saw your hand go up and yours too. Okay, you got to be very interesting. Otherwise, it's going to get shut.
So, regarding these, last Thursday, we haven't had a weekly briefing since when last.
I think we've had a lot of briefings.
Weekly briefing.
Weekly, okay. I think you got tired of briefings.
Yeah, last Thursday the EM had a very detailed discussion with Mr. Lavrov.
Yeah.
And the statement said that the trade economic ties had been discussed in great detail. And the EM used a word, he said that we have to stabilize economic ties. So I wanted to know what is the meaning of this word stabilize in this context in which he used it. Is it that...
I used it 3 times. I'll explain that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
got you.
And one more thing.
You can't ask second question this time.
Just one small thing, sir. Actually, Pakistan has issued visas to 2,200 Sikh pilgrims. So, are they going to visit Pakistan? Have we given the go-ahead for the Baisakhi festival?
Okay, I'll check the details on that. You had a query? Who had a query? You had a query? Something else? Okay.
This is just an older story, but if we could get
try.
anything on it, which is that there was a report that the US had sent a démarche to India specifically on the subject of inviting to BIMSTEC the Myanmar foreign minister for the summit as well as for the foreign ministers meeting. If you could confirm that the US has been in touch on this, and what is India's position? Because earlier you'd always said that India stands by the ASEAN 5-point, but ASEAN itself has taken the position that non-political representation only should be invited to these conferences. So is BIMSTEC and India in particular and Sri Lanka decided to go beyond what ASEAN does?
Okay. And Shailendra, tell me.
सर शैलेंद्र न्यूज़ 18 से आपने देखा होगा इमरान खान जब प्रधानमंत्री थे, जब असेंबली भंग नहीं हुई थी, वो उन्होंने एड्रेस किया था नेशन को. अपने डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिक्स में कहीं ना कहीं उन्होंने अपने स्पीच के दौरान पीएम मोदी का भी जिक्र किया और उन्होंने नवाज शरीफ के साथ उनको जोड़ के बोला कि वो नेपाल में छुप छुप के मिल रहे थे. तो इस बयान को आप कैसे देखते हैं? क्योंकि देखिए इंटरनल डोमेस्टिक उनका पॉलिटिक्स समझ में आता है, लेकिन उन्होंने पीएम का नाम लेके ये बात बोली है. इस पर आपका रिएक्शन चाहता हूँ.
Okay. Look, let me start with the, I think, Lavrov meeting, your query, right? We have, let me clarify, we have an established economic relations with Russia. Okay, that we are aware of, we've been saying it. Given the current circumstances that have, post-developments in Ukraine, I think there is an effort by both sides to ensure that this economic relationship remains stable, and that's why we're saying stabilized. It's not talking about increasing it around. It's about stabilizing it because there is this relationship exists, and it's in our interest to make sure some of this economic activity continues, and we are trying to see how we can keep that stable in that context. I think that was what I would like to clarify as what I meant when I said stabilize. If you want to know what EM meant, then you have to ask EM. आपने 2,200 pilgrims के बारे में पूछा. देखिए किसने, who asked that one? You also asked second question. Look, on that one, we have a bilateral understanding on this issue. There's an agreement of 74 under which people come for religious pilgrimage visas are issued. We have noted this. I'll have to check exactly the modalities of whether all of them will go or when they will go. That I don't have the details immediately because this report came out just now. So I will try to find out more details. But we also issue, and I have in the past clarified.
Some of them will go.
I presume so. If they got visas, I presume so. But again, let me check what are the modalities. There have been difficulties in crossing over due to COVID and other restrictions. So let me not make a comment. I will check. I just got it. I wouldn't like to make a comment on something I'm not fully aware. On the issue of BIMSTEC and look, on the issue of Myanmar's participation in that BIMSTEC virtual summit, the decision of the chair, Sri Lanka in this case, which we respected, let me clarify, was that the Myanmar foreign minister attend the summit in virtual mode. Let me emphasize, the BIMSTEC is a grouping organized around the geography of Bay of Bengal. It is focuses, of course, on economic development and economic and development cooperation. We feel it adds real value to the lives of our people. Our, of course, activities, as you are aware, includes cooperation for the effective implementation of SDGs, SDG targets, cooperation in building capacities in disaster management, etc. Myanmar is an important member of this grouping with important geography that can determine the success of BIMSTEC. We have always welcomed participation by Myanmar in BIMSTEC activities. And of course, as regards our position on developments in Myanmar since last year, I think we have made clear where we stand, and I think there will be no change in our desire to see restoration of democracy in Myanmar. So I would leave it at that. And Shailendi ji, आपने पूछा, देखिए उनके कमेंट जो उन्होंने मतलब आपने खुद ही कहा कि डोमेस्टिक पॉलिटिकल सिचुएशन के तहत किया है, उसमें मैं नहीं बोलूं तो बेहतर है. पर्टिकुलरली उनके कोई कमेंट था कि कहां पे मुलाकात हो रही है, मैं इसके बारे में कोई फॉरेन पॉलिसी इशू पे कोई खास है नहीं, तो मैं कुछ टिप्पणी नहीं कर पाऊंगा इस पे. ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर ऑल ऑफ यू फॉर ज्वाइनिंग अस टुडे इवनिंग. सी यू नेक्स्ट वीक.